Welcome everyone here today. I'll declare the meeting open at 4 p.m. Just read the disclaimer. Members of the public are advised that recommendations to Council contained within this agenda can be subject to alteration. Applicants and other interested parties should refrain from taking any action until such time as written advice is received confirming Council's decision with respect to any particular issue. Any statement or insinuation of approval regarding any planning or development applications made during an agenda briefing session is not to be taken as notice of approval from the Shire. The Shire advises that anyone who has an application lodged with the Shire must obtain and should only rely on written confirmation of the outcome of the application and any conditions attached to the decision made by Council regarding the application. An audio and or visual record will be made of these proceedings to assist in the taking of minutes. Acknowledgement of country. The Shire of Harvey acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land and their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. We pay our respects to all members of the Aboriginal communities and their cultures and to elders both past and present. Item 2, record of apologies and leave of absence. Ms. Neil. Item 3, applications for leave of absence. Neil. Item 4, reading from a book of learning and wisdom. Councillor Burgoyne.
Mr. President, today I quote Winston Churchill in relation to preparedness and training. To each there comes in their lifetime a special moment when they are figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered the chance to do a very special thing, unique to them and fitted to their talents. What a tragedy if that moment finds them unprepared or unqualified for that which could have been their finest hour.
Good on you, Winnie.
Thank you, Councillor Burgoyne. Item 5, declarations of members and officers' personal interest. Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to declare impartiality to item 12.1.1. I'm the council representative for the Harvey Visitor Centre and I'm on the local tourism development strategy group, and that's for the Bunbury Geograph Tourism Partnership Memorandum of Understanding between the Shire of Harvey and the Bunbury Geograph region and all state chambers.
Councillor Jackson.
Yes, same item, 12.1.1, Bunbury Geograph Tourism Partnership. I have a registered tourism business in the Shire of Harvey, so I have a financial interest and I'll step out of the chamber for that.
Thank you. Okay, item 6, response to previous questions taken on notice. Neil. Item 7, public question time. Any questions? Neil. Item 8, petitions, deputations and presentations. Mr. Dave Allen, presentation.
Hello again. That came up quicker than I thought, so I'm not as prepared as I probably should be. Look, I won't take much time. I know I went on a little bit last week. Just wanted to touch on some of the points that got raised last week, and I've considered and thought about a few other aspects. So I'd just like to run through them with you all today. The existing signage policy, I know that was raised and talked about last week. I feel like Treendale is in a unique circumstance at the moment, and the Shire of Harvey obviously has to deal with it. The Bunbury Outer Ring Road's coming in, and it's going to make massive changes to Treendale. I feel like throwing the baby out with the bathwater a little bit, using one strategy for the entire Shire. Obviously very varied in terms of the ground it covers and the different town centres and businesses within. So there must be exceptions, and that's obviously why I'm standing here today and was last week, because I guess I urge the councillors to use that discretion for the installation of this billboard. The Bunbury Outer Ring Road, the proposed signage policy, I know Simon touched on that last week, and I know that's coming, and I know that it might be preemptive. I get that, but when are we actually going to get signs on the ground after the signage policy has gone through? my understanding was that was kind of getting structured for the Bunbury Outer Ring Road, and from my research that's 2023, 2024. So are we just going to be in this no man's land between now and then? And you know, at Treendale we've got all these cars going, everyone going south is going past our front door. Just don't understand why we wait for another few years until they're not at our front door to advertise what's behind the front door. It just makes no sense to me. Like, now is the time, and I really think we should get on with it. That's obviously my opinion. Another thing which was raised last week is a real concern, is the precedent side of things, which I get. I guess my opinion with this is that we really are a great draw card for Treendale, and probably if there was going to be a business within there that's a draw card, I really feel that we are it. You know, it's something completely unique, without being critical of other businesses, because I think everyone should be able to promote their business. But you know, like McDonald's, there's McDonald's BP on the freeway. There's McDonald's, you know, and there's McDonald's in Bunbury. There's McDonald's in South Bunbury. There's McDonald's in Busselton. There's another one at Vass. Like, I think from a customer point of view, there's options. You can make the same argument about, you know, Bunnings and fuel stations, that sort of thing. Again, I think they all deserve their time to, you know, to be promoted, but obviously we can't promote everyone. That's where it gets a little tricky. So I feel that the Treendale Farm Hotel has got a really unique offering and something that really could pull people in. So if there ever going to be a business that could do it, I think that's the one. The other point just on that is, if you look at the map, sorry, I haven't actually got it set up as well as I like, but we all know where the pub's getting built. So it's the furthest business away. So let's say if we pull someone in off the freeway, they're going to drive past every single business, pretty much. It's in Treendale. So off the back of promoting one business, everyone else is going to be saying. I think that's a really critical thing, because people have to drive through all this of the business centre to actually get to the Treendale Farm Hotel. Shared sign, that was touched on last week. You know, the bureaucracy comes into it a little bit. If that was a shared sign, I think it would. It's definitely an option, and you know, if there was a shared sign, we'd love to be part of it. But I just don't see how it really work without looking cluttered, firstly, and then who's going to manage? Obviously, it falls on the Shire's shoulders then. So, you know, who's paying for it? Who's managing it? What businesses go on there? You know, business leaves, a business changes its logo. You know, a business is sold. Just the management, I think, would make it quite difficult. But again, if that's the way the council wants to go, obviously we'd love to be part of it. But I'm just wanting the practicality of it. We're ready to do it. We've spoken to the landowner. We're paying for it, so we kind of take ownership of that and really run with it. The term that was touched on last week, more than happy to consider a limited term if the council feels that would assist in their decision making. I'm fairly comfortable that it'll be a really beneficial thing for Treendale. So yeah, if that's the way the council decides to go, it's absolutely fine with me, no issue. In summarising, so I haven't taken too much time tonight, we've bought into Treendale, we've bought into the vision of it, the town centre, what the Shire of Harvey have created. We've spent good money, you know, we've indebted ourselves and done something through a pretty challenging time, and I guess all we're asking for is a bit of support on the way back too. Like, we're building something that is completely unique for WA, and I guess we just ask the Shire to support us and let us promote it. I mean, right now, every car is going past Treendale. Let's use it. Why wait? Like, it's just, it seems pointless to me to stand back and just wait for these cars to go past without promoting ourselves at all. So that's all I've got to say. Appreciate your time over the last couple of weeks, and yeah, it's all in your hands. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Item 9, announcements by a presiding member or CEO without discussion. Nil. Item 10, confirmation of minutes. Confirmation of minutes from the ordinary council meeting Tuesday 25th of August 2020. Councillor Adams, moving. Seconder, Councillor Bromham. Any discussion, any questions? Put the motion. Is anyone against the motion? Motion is carried. Item 11, receipt of minutes and recommendations from committees. the Shire of Harvey Local Emergency Management Committee, Monday 14th of September 2020. Councillor Burgoyne moving. Councillor Dickinson second. Any questions, any queries? Put the motion. Is anyone against the motion? Motion is carried. Item 12, Officers' Reports. Item 12.1.1, Bunbury Geograph Tourism Partnership MOU. And we have officer recommendation on page 9 that Council authorises the Chief Executive Officer to sign the Bunbury Geograph Tourism Partnership Memorandum of Understanding for the period 1 July 2020 to 30th of June 2024 as detailed within attachment 1. Councillor Adams moving. Second. Councillor Simpson. Any questions, any discussion? Put the motion. Is anyone against the motion? Motion is carried. Okay, item 12.1.2, Council Meeting Schedule. The officer recommendation on page 13 that Council adopt the meeting schedule for the period of October 2020 to October 2021 as listed. Councillor Bromham and Councillor Dickinson. Is there any discussion, any questions?
I'll speak against it.
Put the motion. Is anyone against the motion? 2? Okay.
Well, I did want to speak against it.
Oh, you want to speak against it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Thanks, Mr. President. I think my views on this have been known now for quite some time. Anyone who's works is limited for time, and to take a Tuesday afternoon out of your schedule for 3 Tuesdays a month is too much. I can't see why the concept forum can't be incorporated into the other meetings, into the other 2 meetings for the month. I think it would make it a lot better for people who work in businesses or are employed to be able to attend these meetings. As you all know, I find it very hard to attend these concept and agenda briefing meetings, and I think it's just more user-friendly if we could incorporate them into either the ordinary council meeting and make just a longer Tuesday and put the briefings in before an ordinary council meeting like we used to.
Speaker for the motion. Any other speakers against? Councillor Jackson.
Yes, as I asked at the discussion to have this aired a little bit, I find it disappointing that in a view of consensus where we're trying to find the best way forward, that we've gone, even though at least 3 people said a similar thing to what Councillor Cavoni has just said, either in the survey or in the discussion, but that's completely ignored, and we've gone with the majority said we'd rather do this every week. Up to a third of the people on council find it hard to come every week, and that's been ignored. So yes, I speak against it.
Any?
Councillor Jackson, just to advise that when we were, all of the discussion was taken into account in preparing the council report. It was necessary at that time to provide an option that was able to cater for the majority of councillors, and the recommendations based on the feedback that I had received. So when I presented this at the agenda briefing, I said that I provided the report as is. If councillors wish to make any amendment to it and that's supported, then there's the ability to do that.
And I do believe we're in debate, so you know, we really should follow debating.
Anyone for the motion? Any speakers for? Anyone against? Oh, sorry, Wendy's for. Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you. I vote for the motion. When I put my hand up, or when we all put our hand up to become a councillor, we knew that it was going to impact our work, we knew it was going to impact our family, and we all made that decision when we nominated for election to change our lives and to change our commitments. So I think I take on board that it possibly does not satisfy everybody, but we've all had to make changes as coming to council, and I support the motion. Thank you.
Any other speaker against? Councillor Beach.
Yeah, I support Councillor Jackson, Councillor Cabani on the way he said that, so I won't repeat that. And I just pick up what Councillor Dickinson has said. When I first came to council, we came once every 3 weeks, so approximately 17 meetings per year. Half the council were on a development service committee, so that meant an extra meeting for them if they so chose to be on that committee, and that was optional. So we've gone from a council that may have come to 17 meetings being required now to come to 36, and I find that an extraordinary workload. It doesn't impact me that much, in as much as obviously I don't work anymore, and I was on one of those committees that had to come the alternate Tuesday, so it's only a slight increase, but I do feel for those councillors that were not on that particular committee, and suddenly going from 17 to 36, I think it's a big impasse. So it's just on those grounds that I will vote against this motion.
Speaker for Councillor Bromham.
Yeah, I'll speak for the motion. We've got a concept meeting, an agenda meeting and a council meeting. They all deal with slightly different things. I think concept meetings are very useful because it allows us to look at the future, and I think that's something that we've probably been poor at in the past. And I think we need to give it adequate time to actually be able to sit and discuss those things that might drive our communities forward in the future. And I don't see adding it to one of the other meetings as being beneficial from that point of view, as it could be compressed, and we're not going to have the dealings. And as was mentioned last week during the agenda meeting, when you're at a council meeting over a protracted period of time, people start to lose concentration on the things they're doing. So I think splitting it up into these 3 meetings from that perspective is very important from a quality assurance point of view. And I think the concept meeting has a great advantage in allowing councillors to sit and discuss things with staff and to look to the future and plan together. So that's why I support the motion as it stands.
Any other speaker against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Adams.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I feel obliged to speak for. I supported it wholeheartedly, this idea in the first instance, and I'll continue to do so. The guts of the matter is that with the meeting today, I don't think we quite got a grip of the concept meeting yet, by the way. I think we can certainly look to the future a bit more, and I don't think we're doing that as we should. But as far as the agenda briefing is concerned, the point is that we are all able to make a good contribution, ask questions. I know we can't vote on yes or no, but we can certainly ask questions, and we're all involved. And that was the problem with the old system, when we had 3 committees, 3 supposedly grand committees. The general purpose was a waste of time, but the other 2 were too often manned or womaned by the same people, and the other 6 didn't get the opportunity to have a say. So I think this is the way to go. Okay, it might take up 2 or 3 more meeting days, but yeah, I think you've got to accept that.
No, it's shocking if I'd have sat on that, wouldn't I?
Okay. No more discussion. I will put the motion. Is there anyone against the motion? Motion is carried 9-4. Item 12.2.1, Old Coast Road Eco Museum entrance upgrade. The office recommendation is on page 15 that Council endorses the proposed entrance upgrade to the Australind Eco Museum on Old Coast Road as shown in attachment 1 and as detailed in the report. Move Councillor Lovett, second Councillor Birdline. Any questions, any discussion? Put the motion. Is anyone against the motion? Motion is carried. Item 12.3.1, advertising sign boarding billboard. Councillor Beach.
I have sent an alternative motion into staff, Mr. President, if that could be available on the screen somewhere, which I'd like to know. So my alternative motion, which is on the screens there, suggests or states that we approve the application for development approval for advertising sign billboard lot 131 146 Victoria Road, Rowlands, subject to the following conditions, and there's quite a number of conditions there. You don't want to go through those?
Would anyone like them read out, or all happy to read that? Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Coleman.
Thank you.
Councillor Beach.
And just for a start, just like to thank Mr. Hall and his team for putting this alternative motion together. I know it's contradictory to the one that they recommended, but after discussions they came up with the wordings that we've got before you today. So they're not my words, I just said I'd like to approve it, and this is what they are suggesting. So basically, in supporting this alternative motion, I'd like to think that we're going to acknowledge that since the Shire of Harvey local law, which was a very strict governing law, and we had no room to move, no wriggle room, and that was repealed and replaced with a local planning policy, and the policy is a guiding document, a guiding principle. So it gives council a greater deal of discretion in determining issues that we're sort of talking about right now. So in support of the motion, I just want to put some dot points to you, and I think a lot of these Mr. Allen have already told you, but in support of the argument, this development of a tavern is a new start-up business and requires customer support. In other words, people going to the establishment. It's not a multinational business, and it's not a high-profile brand name that can afford saturation advertising. And I won't name any companies, but you probably know the types of companies I'm referring to. So visitors of the area will need to know of its existence, and if it's going to be hidden away in Treendale, how will they find it? Signage is obviously the option. I think we're being presented with a real opportunity to draw people off the highway and into the Treendale centre in particular. Those travellers enticed off the highway will not only benefit the hotel, but hopefully the businesses within the Treendale centre. So I believe it's critical getting some signage up as soon as possible to assist getting the Treendale Farm Hotel and Town Centre on the map before the board is constructed. There's no cost to the Shire with this proposal, as the proponents are prepared to take sole responsibility in taking the ground lease, erecting the sign and maintaining the sign. And as I understand the proposal, the billboard is not a standard third-party advertising. It's a sign that will be informative, directional, and advertises not just Treendale Farm Hotel, but the Treendale Centre and the Shire itself. Now, I am aware that we have a committee investigating a signage strategy, but at the time that is developed and implemented, the opportunities of this business will be lost. So I believe that the placement of the billboard is a win-win, and in this instance is really about support. Now, you'll notice from the conditions that it's approved for 12 months only, at which time we would expect it to be removed, and if it wasn't removed or there was an argument about it, I'd be extremely disappointed. So that probably is one of the major clauses of the alternative. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. President. I support the alternative motion because whilst we're developing a policy, this will actually be a really good test case for us to see how effective it is or ineffective. And if there's any issues that throw up, it'll actually help inform our policy going forward. So in that regard, and in support of local business, I support Paul Beach's alternative motion. Thank you.
Are there any speakers against?
No, just a question.
Question.
Just two questions. One, did I read in the briefing notes that they needed 18 months to make the sign viable? I'm pretty sure I read that to make it economical they wanted it for 18 months. The other question is, I noticed that Jack Civil have put up bunting around their property here in the last few days, which advertises their business and Australian premix and everything else. Does that need Shire approval? I noticed Caboni's, my old company, also has a roped up sign that's been in Brunswick for about the last 2 years in the main street. Does that have approval? Is there anything to stop these guys from putting up a rope sign on a fence? Or the bunting or whatever you call that stuff that Perkins put up around all their buildings. BGC, in fact, I think I've got it around the Trendale Hotel as they're building that. Is that approved?
Through you, Mr Chair, look, I'm not going to comment on the viability of that 18 months. That's probably something for the proponent, but I think this one's for 12 months, so it's not that far off it. As far as the Jack Civil one is concerned, that is actually one that we discussed with the proponent. It's an exempt structure. It is actually advertised, but it's on there. I'm trying to think of the name of the word. It's actually a hoarding of some sort, but it is actually exempt. They're not required to get an approval. They did send the documentation to us prior to installing it, and we did give it an approval. So, but it is actually an exempt structure, an exempt sign.
So like BGC around Trendale?
BGC is an interesting one because it actually forms part of the construction site. So it's actually temporary signage associated with the construction of that building. If they wanted to leave that there in long term, we would have a problem with it and ask it to be removed.
Is there a speaker against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Burgoyne.
Mr President, over last week I deliberated on this, and knowing that the Shire of Dardanup have allowed signage on the main road, I took particular note. There's only 2 signs. So the thought that there may become a proliferation of signs out of this, I don't think would eventuate, despite the fact that we've got part 2 there. The other thing that I thought about was, a couple of years ago I went to America and drove down a freeway to one of the most iconic things you could see in America, which was Mount Rushmore. And there was a billboard on the side of the road that actually enticed us off that highway into a little town, probably 5 k's off the road. That was probably one of the highlights of our trips. Had that billboard not been there, we wouldn't have gone there. We wouldn't have been able to see it from the freeway. So I think the power of advertising is magnificent. We need to take, as was said, take advantage of what's happening now, get people into the habit of going into Trendale prior to the Outer Ring Road being built. So for that reason I support it.
Is any speakers against? Any more for? Councillor Beach, would you like to?
Yeah, I don't think there's very much to rebut, Mr President, so I'll close with saying nothing to say, nothing further to add.
Just a reason to change, if you
Certainly.
brief summary.
I came prepared. The Council believes by supporting the application it will give a much needed economic boost / benefit in the short term to the Trendale Business Centre prior to adopting a signage strategy.
Okay, so I'll put the motion. Is anyone against the motion? Motion is carried, 13-0. Thank you. Okay, item 12.3.2, application for a use not listed, animal establishment. And the officer recommendation 1 of 2, the council pursuant to clause 4.2.4b of the Shire of Harvey's District Planning Scheme number 1 determines that the proposed use not listed detailed in the application for development approval for lot 67, number 21 Sweeney Drive, Australian can be considered as an animal establishment which may be consistent with the objectives and purposes of the light and service industry zone. Moved Councillor Simpson, second Councillor Campbell. Any questions, any discussion? Put the motion, is anyone against the motion? Motion is carried 13-0, absolute majority. And 2, it's a simple majority, authorises officers to determine the development application pursuant to delegation 4.1.3(9), subject to no objections being received during the public advertising period. Moved Councillor Bronwyn, second Councillor Adams. Put the motion, is anyone against the motion? Motion is carried. Corporate services, item 12.4.1, listing of accounts paid July 2020. The office recommendation on page 28 that Council notes the above list of accounts paid for the period of July 2020, totalling $5,203,158.60. Councillor Lovett, moving. Councillor Dixon, second. Any questions, any queries? Put the motion, is anyone against the motion? The motion is carried. Item 12.4.2, financial statements as at 31st of July 2020. Officer recommendation on page 31 that Council receives the financial statements as at 31st of July 2020. Councillor Adams, moving. Second, Councillor Dickinson. Any questions, any queries? Put the motion, is anyone against the motion? Motion is carried. Community and lifestyle, item number 12.5.1, request to waive normal hire fees for Harvey Town Hall. And the officer recommendation that Council, subject to COVID-19 safety plan for the event, grants approval for the Harvey NAIDOC community to use the Harvey Town Hall for the purpose of hosting the NAIDOC celebration event, an Indigenous art exhibition, and 2, agrees to waive the normal hire fees for the use of the Harvey Town Hall from 8th to the 29th of November 2020 inclusive. Councillor Adams, moving. Second, Councillor Jackson. Any questions, any queries? I'll put the motion. Is anyone against the motion? Motion is carried 13-0, absolute majority. Item 13, elected members' motions of which previous notice has been given is nil. Item 14, notice of motion for the following meeting. Councillor Lovett first.
Thank you, Mr. President. I emailed this through earlier, so that I'm not sure if it's can be put on the screen. Yeah. And that is that Council authorises the Chief Executive Officer to make a formal submission to Main Roads WA in accordance with clause 7.2 of their speed zoning policy to lower the existing posted speed limits on both Buffalo Road and Cathedral Avenue in Leschenal to improve safety and amenity for road users and residents in the area.
Councillor Adams.
Yeah. My motion, which I know won't go down particularly well in some quarters possibly, that Council, recognising the prolonged impact of the COVID-19 virus on the economy, all levels of government, and perhaps more importantly on the looming impact on household budgets, request the CEO in partnership with the President to bring together a committee chaired by the President and consisting of equal representation from staff and councillors to A, critically review the 2021 budget to identify ongoing and necessary services, maintenance, repairs and projects having an immediate community benefit, while also identifying budgeted longer-term proposals that could well be deferred until the outcome of the current COVID-driven economic situation becomes clearer. And B, review and recommend modifications to the several current policies that may well be difficult to justify and inappropriate during a period of enforced austerity, such as we are almost certain to be required to address. And I've given some reasons why, but I'll do that at the, I will enlarge on that at the concept.
Thank you. Okay, item 15, questions by members of which due notice has been given is nil. Reports of members being handed in. Okay, item 17, seal register. It's nil. Item 18, new business of an urgent nature introduced by a decision of meeting. Nil. Item 19, matters behind closed doors. It's nil. Declare the meeting closed at 4:36. Thank you everyone for your attendance.